Your life at every level of emergency fund, from $0 to $50,000. It's 3 in the morning. You're not sick, nobody died, nothing dramatic happened today. But you're lying there staring at the ceiling and your brain absolutely refuses to shut off. Because somewhere between dinner and midnight, you remembered. The car has been making that noise again, the one you've been pretending not to hear for 3 weeks. The one that your friend, the one who knows about cars, said probably means the transmission. And you don't know what a transmission costs, but you know it's not $47, which is approximately what's sitting in your checking account right now after rent. So you're doing the math. At 3 a.m., involuntarily. Could you put it on the credit card? Maybe. But the credit card is already at $2,300 and you genuinely promise yourself that you weren't going to add to it this month. Could you borrow from your parents? Technically, yes, but you're 31 years old and that conversation feels like a specific kind of failure you're not ready for. Could you just not fix it? Could you just keep driving it and hope for the best and deal with the consequences when they arrive? That's where you land at 3:17 a.m. Hope for the best. That is your financial plan. My name is Nick, and today we're going to talk about what your life actually looks like at every level of emergency fund, from $0 all the way to $50,000. Because the difference isn't just mathematical. It's the difference between 3 a.m. ceiling staring and actually sleeping at night. And nobody has ever put all of it on a whiteboard. Until now. Let's start at the bottom. $0 saved. Nothing in the account that isn't already spoken for. This is not a rare situation. According to the Federal Reserve's 2025 report on the economic well-being of U.S. households, 37% of Americans cannot cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling something. Not $4,000, not $40,000, $400. The cost of a car repair, a visit to urgent care, a plane ticket home for a family emergency. 37% of the country cannot handle $400 without going into debt. Here's what life at $0 actually feels like every single day. Every unexpected expense is a crisis, not an inconvenience, not a setback, a genuine crisis that requires immediate triage. Your hot water heater fails. Crisis. Your dog eats something it shouldn't. Crisis. Your landlord raises rent by $150. Crisis. You get a parking ticket. Actual crisis. When you have no emergency fund, your entire financial life is one continuous game of financial Jenga. Every unexpected expense pulls a block from the tower, and at some point, usually at the worst possible time, the whole thing falls. But here's the psychological damage that nobody talks about. Living at $0 doesn't just affect your bank account. It affects your decision-making at every level. You can't take the job interview in another city because you can't afford the train ticket. You can't negotiate your salary because you need this paycheck too badly to risk it. You can't leave the bad relationship because your finances are too entangled to separate. You can't take any risk whatsoever because there is no margin for error. Princeton researchers studying the psychology of scarcity found that financial stress consumes the equivalent of 13 IQ points of cognitive bandwidth. 13 IQ points. That's the difference between a bad decision and a good one, between seeing the opportunity and missing it, between thinking clearly and just surviving. At $0, your brain is running a 13-point deficit every single day. Something shifts at $1,000. It's not dramatic. Nobody throws a party. Your problems don't disappear. But $1,000 is the difference between a crisis and an inconvenience for the majority of financial emergencies that hit normal people. Car repair under $1,000. Handled. Urgent care visit. Handled. Parking ticket. Almost laughable now. 1 month of groceries if you lose your job. Handled. The Federal Reserve study found that having just $400 in liquid savings reduces financial stress measurably. Push that to $1,000 and you've eliminated roughly 60% of the financial emergencies that derail people's lives. Here's what $1,000 actually feels like every single day. You stop flinching when your phone rings from an unknown number. Before $1,000, an unknown caller might be a collections call, a landlord with bad news, a medical billing department. Your nervous system has learned to treat unknown callers as potential threats. After $1,000, you still don't love unknown callers, but the physiological response, the cortisol spike, the chest tightening, starts to decrease because you have a small buffer between you and the worst case. $1,000 is not financial security. Let's be very clear about that. One serious medical bill, one major car repair, 1 month of unemployment, $1,000 disappears. But $1,000 is the first proof of concept. It's your brain learning for the first time that it is possible for you to accumulate money, that savings is something that only happens to other people. That identity shift, I'm someone who has savings, is worth more than the $1,000 itself. $3,000 is where the math starts to get interesting. At $3,000 saved, you have approximately 1 month of living expenses for the median American household. And 1 month of living expenses changes everything about how you experience your job. When you have zero savings, your employer has complete leverage over you. You need this job. You need this paycheck. You will absorb almost any treatment, any demand, any unreasonable expectation, because the alternative is financial disaster. But with 1 month of expenses saved, you have one move, and having one move is infinitely better than having no moves. Vanguard research found that having 1 month of expenses saved increases financial well-being scores by 21% compared to having nothing. 21% improvement from 1 month of savings. Here's what $3,000 also buys you that $1,000 couldn't. Options during emergencies. At $1,000, a $900 car repair wipes you out completely and puts you back at zero. At $3,000, the same $900 car repair leaves you with $2,100. You're still standing. You haven't lost all your progress. That resilience, the ability to absorb a hit and keep going, is one of the underrated financial feelings in the world. $5,000 is the number that financial planners call the first real safety threshold. Here's why. A 2024 analysis of household financial emergencies found that the median cost of a financial crisis event, meaning the actual emergencies that hit real families, is $3,500. Car transmission, $2,800 average. Emergency room with average insurance, $1,300 average. 1 month of rent in a pinch varies but averages $1,500 nationally. Broken laptop for someone who works remotely, $800 to $1,200. At $5,000, you can absorb the median financial emergency and still have money left. You don't get wiped out, you get set back. And being set back is survivable. Being wiped out is demoralizing enough that 40% of people who hit zero don't rebuild. They stay at zero for years. $5,000 also starts to change your relationship with opportunity. When you have $5,000, you can start thinking about things that require upfront investment. A professional certification that costs $1,500 upfront but could add $8,000 to your annual salary. A small business idea that needs $2,000 in materials to test. A move to a city with better job prospects that requires first and last month rent. None of these are possible at $0. At $5,000, they become options, and options are the currency of upward mobility. $10,000 is the milestone that most personal finance people talk about, and they're right to, but they usually describe it wrong. They say $10,000 is 3 months of expenses, a real emergency fund. That's true mathematically, but here's what they miss. $10,000 changes your nervous system. A landmark study from the Financial Health Network found that households with $10,000 or more in liquid savings report 47% lower rates of financial anxiety than households with under $1,000. Not 10% lower, not 20% lower, 47%. Nearly half the anxiety gone. Not because their income changed, not because their expenses changed, not because the world got safer or cheaper or easier, just because of the number in the account. This is what $10,000 actually feels like day to day. The check engine light flashes. You feel mild annoyance. You schedule a mechanic, you move on with your day. That's it. That is the entire transformation. Not getting rich, not retiring early, not buying a yacht or a beach house or quitting a job you love. Just sleeping at night. Just making decisions from a place of calm instead of fear. $1,000 doesn't get you there completely, but it starts the journey. And the journey is worth starting tonight. Figure out what level you're at right now. Then figure out what it would take to get to the next one. Not $50,000, not even $10,000, just the next level. Because the distance between where you are and where you could be is smaller than your 3 a.m. brain is telling you it is. No more, keep more. Subscribe if this helped. I put out videos exactly like this every week. I'll see you in the next one.